Welcome to Breaking Par with Bernard Sheridan, the golf instruction podcast that helps you take control of your game. Now, here's your host, the founder of Par Breakers Golf Academy and certified Golf Channel Swing Fix instructor, Bernard Sheridan.
Wayne, welcome to Breaking Par. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thoroughly enjoy this.
So it's great to have you here. So you're outside because I can hear birds chirping.
Oh, it's just beautiful out here on the porch.
So where are you located, Wayne? Give us a little bit of insight on that.
Actually, right now, I'm actually located in Camden, South Carolina. And I do teach out of Florence, South Carolina, but I'm a member at Camden Country Club, and I thought today would be the perfect afternoon to play a little golf, so I'm hanging out on the back porch.
Nice. So how long have you been teaching?
10 years. I've been teaching probably full-time, really the majority of it, teaching since 2009.
Okay, and pretty much what got you started in that? I mean, was it something that you just decided to do, or something that you always wanted to do, or something that just kind of you fell into?
I did always want to do it, but I wasn't very good at it. And so it wasn't until I met Lynn Blake in 2009 that I really started excelling as a teacher. And I worked with him side by side for 5.5 years. And that's kind of where it all evolved from.
So Lynn is a great guy. He's so personable, and we've had him on the show. And I've had the opportunity to speak with him in person a few times, and it must have been a wonderful experience to be able to work with him so closely.
Oh, it was the best. I mean, he was like a father. I mean, we spent about every day together for 5.5 years. Even when we weren't teaching, we were playing chess, smoking cigars, or having a scotch.
Nice.
Doing those. And we watched golf constantly at night together. We'd sit there and watch it and pick it apart.
Nice. So yeah, he's a great guy, and so full of knowledge. I mean, really has done so much in the game, and has worked with so many different players of all different levels. That so what are the type of players that you're working with predominantly now?
Anywhere from a scratch golfer to a beginner. I do not discriminate. I bring them all on. I stay pretty booked. I run a club also, so I teach about 25 to 30 hours a week on top of that. And so I have a pretty busy schedule, and I'm fortunate, I'm lucky, but I just pack them in. I don't care who they are. I want to see everybody improve. Now,
Lynn is predominantly involved in the golfing machine. Is that a lot of the method that you're using now in your lessons, or have you added your own little things in along with that?
Now, first of all, I wouldn't call it a method, more or less a system of ways to teach. But, yes, I teach off of it 90% of the time. But that's really not all I follow. I teach off people like Seymour Dunn, Bob McDonald, Tommy Armour, Percy Boomer, Jim Barnes, Paul Runyon. The list goes on and on. The old stuff is what I really, really gravitate to, and I really study. Because in my opinion, I love it, and I think it's the best.
So when you're doing that, are you using any type of technology mixed in with that, or are you pretty much doing mostly 2D type stuff, or really, where are you with that?
I use video rarely. I mean, I'll use it for myself a lot to look at, but I show it. It all depends on the student, first of all. Mm-hmm. Some people just don't need to see it. But I do video a lot, but other than that, I do not use much. Launch monitor, stuff like that, I'll use it for club fitting, but not as much for teaching because, the majority of people I teach, really, they're not worried about varying degrees, 3 degrees here or 3 degrees there. It's more or less, let's drop some shots off the game. They're not tour players. Even the scratch handicap, a lot of them, they don't really want to know all that stuff, the ones that I run across. They're like, no, that's just too much for me. I need some bare bones basics. What can I do to improve?
So in that realm, what exactly are you working on? Are you working on just like whatever comes up as to what they're having a problem with or an issue with at this moment? Or is there specific drills that you like to do to get them to do certain things? or is there? I know that with me, I teach a lot on impact-based teaching. So there's certain things and that kind of parallels golfing machine. But there's certain things that no matter what, I'm always kind of touching base on and going back to constantly, like flat left wrist, forward swing bottom, things of that nature.
Oh, I mean, I think you're right there. You encompass all that, but a lot of it's based on, when I talk to the student at first, what are you looking to improve on? What are your goals? And then we just assess everything from there, because they may have a good impact, but their zone one's out of place, the body. Might need to work on that. It's just everybody is so different. So it's just not such you have this one key you hit on all the time, because, when you got a 36 handicap or a scratch golfer, you know yourself the varying degrees of differences there. And I don't really have any set way. Once I get to know the person, though, and we start working with each other, 1, 2, 3 times in a row, 3 days in a week, well, then it becomes a lot simpler to narrow those things down. Do we need to work on impact? But to boil it all down, it's right there, the straight plane line, the flat left wrist, and then we do the body motions, getting the body synced up right.
Sure, absolutely. So those are things that, in general, you're always touching base on, no matter what no matter how well you know the student. There's always things that are constants. But then again, you're tailoring it each time to the individual, what they need to work on at this moment. So as for like playing lessons and things like that, are you taking students out on the golf course? You doing stuff like that?
All the time. I love going out on the golf course, because that's where we get into course management, thinking, how to play your game, using your shots, where they learn don't play the shot you don't have, and we get all into that, what to hit, where, when, learning how to hit different shots, making everything simulated to what they're going to be doing almost all the time.
Sure. Now, do you find that you do that often with a lot of the students that you have, or is that something that is most of the time you're spending your time on the lesson tee when you are doing lessons? I know that since you're running a club too, you're probably, your time is so full with all different kinds of things that it's basically it takes a little bit more time to do a playing lesson, so there's not always that kind of time available.
No, I try to at least everybody I teach, I at least take them on the course once, at least. I mean, we make time. And I think it's just so important, because there's a lot of people that are playing good golf on the driving range that just, when they get to the golf course, it goes another way. What's that? The longest walk in golf, from the practice tee to the first tee, right?
Yep.
So you got to get them out there to see what's going on, and that kind of gives you a good assessment about them a little bit, how they play or what they think they're doing.
Sure. So are there certain things that you do with them on the practice tee that helps them kind of make that transition out onto the golf course a little bit more easily?
Percentages. We really harp on percentages, playing your golf shot. If you predominantly hit it left to right, well, that's what you're going to play. And just because it went left one time doesn't mean we stray away from that, or vice versa for the other player. You got to play your game, and you got to hit your shots and not try to hit shots you don't have.
Sure. So essentially, in the coaching aspect, you're trying to get them to embrace their individuality as a player. Get more out of what they actually can do, and then try to play to their strengths, as opposed to trying to play to another player's strengths who they're playing with.
No doubt, you play to your limitations, and we all have them. No matter how good we are, we've got certain limitations that we must stay in.
No, I absolutely agree with that. I know that that I personally, when I play, I prefer to hit a fade. I feel comfortable with that. I feel like I can control the distance better with that. I feel like even if I might not have as much distance with the fade as I do with the draw, I can change up clubs and then still be able to feather a shot in there and get it to do what I need it to do, as opposed to if I'm playing with a player who, let's say, hits a draw. I'm not trying to hit draws, even though I can, but predominantly when I'm most comfortable is when I hit a fade. So I try to embrace that part of what I do as a player. And then I think it's a great idea, as you said, to get your students to do the same, to embrace what's their strengths and not try to, I want to say, step out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, I take a lot from Jackie Burke. He wrote a great book, A Natural Way to Better Golf. And in there, he put in there, why shoot at the pin from 200 yards away if you can't hit it with a rifle? What makes you think you can hit it with a golf club? Aim for the center of the greens. You're never going to be far off. Why? How many times have you played with that guy that's trying to hit the shot? He's never hit it, and it's like, why do you try that? You never hit it before in your life.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's totally true. I mean, I see a lot of players try that. As a matter of fact, at one time I had a student who, when we were doing a playing lesson, and he hit a cut shot off the tee and ended up behind some trees. And he was probably about 30 to 35 yards back from the trees, and he probably had about 160 yards to the pin. And so I said to him, what are you going to do here? What do you think you should do? And he said, I'm going to hit the ball over those trees. And I said, you are? I said, hey, that sounds like a great idea. I said, but let's say if we drop 10 balls here, how many of them would you hit over the trees? And he said, oh, probably 8 of them. And I went, really? So then I said, well, then be my guest. Go right ahead. So then, of course, he hit the first shot directly into the trees. So then I suggested to him to maybe take a wedge and to hit it out to the 100-yard marker, and which he did very easily. And then I said to him, okay, out of those 2 shots, which one would you rather be playing from? And he said, well, of course, the one in the fairway from 100 yards. And I said, well, then what was the reason why you tried the other one? He said, well, I thought I could make it. And I said, well, if you can't make it, I said, pros, if they're lucky, are going to make it 6 out of 10. So if you can make it 6 out of 10, then go for it. If not, then I wouldn't try it unless it's really like, I don't know, you're in a match and you have to press or something like that. Then you might want to go for it. I said, but try to play within your comfort zone. So I mean, I totally agree with all that. And so many players, I think they try to play outside of their comfort zone. They don't really, or they try to pull off stuff that they've never done before. And which is fine if you're on the range. I mean, practice that on the range. Try to pull off shots that you never did before. Do you have them manufacture shots on the range to try to do that?
Oh, yeah. Try to build in imagination, especially younger kids as they're playing better and learning the game a little better as they progress. You got to learn to use the imagination and shape those different shots. And it's really not that hard if you stick to the plane lines, learning and we learn that on the range. We open our plane line, we close our plane lines, and we swing down those open or closed plane lines to produce the different shots we want without having to change the actual golf swing. The golf swing's the same. We just shift our plane lines and point the club face at where we want the ball to end up, and there she goes. It's getting people to trust that factor. All of them think, well, I got to swing different for a fade than a draw. No, same golf swing. We're just shifting around.
Yeah, I mean, that's great insight right now, and that's a wonderful point of interest for our listeners out there in Par Nation to understand, is that if you can get the same swing consistently and change your plane lines, then that can really give you the opportunity to be able to play different shape shots as opposed to trying to create something that's a completely different swing to do what you want to do.
No doubt. I mean, to me, it's just simple. It really is. To me, people make it harder than it really is.
Yeah, I totally agree with that too. I mean, I think that it's the type of sport that's it's very easy to overcomplicate, and to make I guess add things in or think that it's harder than it really is. But if you step back and kind of look at the physics of the game and things that absolutely have to happen, then just adhere to those rules, then you'll find that it's a lot easier. And then also try not to force those things to happen. Let them happen. I think that's another thing that I have problems with my students, is getting them to let it happen.
Yeah, and I do a lot of what I do with a lot of people is I try to give them a little understanding of why we must do these things. I really do, especially, depends on the student though, of course, but I do a lot of them. I really try to explain the geometry of the circle. The lights come on when they understand, okay, there is a low point. All right, there's a radius. I've got that there. There are all these factors involved, and then all of a sudden the light starts coming on a little bit that they don't have to try to make these things happen. If they just keep a certain motion going, keeping the head centered and all this stuff, it's right there. But I think you got to give people data, proof of what's going on, so it kind of registers a little bit upstairs. It's not, it seems as if I think I'm doing this, but no, this is how it really works and why you should do it. If you understand what I mean a little bit there.
Absolutely. I mean, I totally understand what you mean. And those points are so important for a student to not over exaggerate or to not do things that are outside of those specifics. If you understand where the low point or the bottom of the swing arc is, and as opposed to, and I think too, what I find is that a lot of players, they really don't understand those things, and a lot of instructors don't always explain those things to those students. I think that some instructors, because they know all these things, they sometimes don't explain it to the student, or don't get it, or don't reiterate it enough to get it across, so the student kind of starts to grasp that information. That allows them, once they understand a little bit better, to be able to make things happen more often. Are there drills specifically that you use with students to help them kind of achieve some of these goals? And then this is kind of a two-part question. And the other one is, do you find that a lot of students, because of and we just talked about the low point in the swing, they don't focus on that? They try to focus more on the ball itself?
All right, to answer your last part of the question, I do. I don't think it's that they focus on the low point, but I think most of them don't understand that the left shoulder is the low point off the left shoulder, but it's in motion, and the only way we can stabilize it is by the suspension point, the base of the neck, keeping it stable. And it's hard for them once you start to show them all this stuff. Then they understand the more my head moves around, the more my low point changes. So it makes it very erratic. And I think once you can get them to learn that head is centered, it's a centered pivot, that all of a sudden my low point starts to be in the same spot every time. Assuming that the left wrist is flat and not bending, because then you replace the left shoulder from the center to the left wrist now becomes the fulcrum.
Sure, absolutely. So and if that wrist ends up bending, then we can see that low point can change also.
Exactly, and I do a lot of that in the sand. Just draw lines in the sand and have them make swings in the sand, so it gives you all right, we see it. We draw all those lines there. But now, as your first part about training, drills and all that stuff. Well, first of all, I use a tons of rods. I mean, rods are laid everywhere. Lynn taught me that. They make the invisible visible. They're there. So we always have the plane line. We always have a plane line. We have a stance line. And then we have, not only the baseline plane line, I'll have plane rods going up either way. And then I'll have some drawn in a circle. All of a sudden it's there. You can see everything and how it works. I'm tracing my plane line here and there. And that becomes so simple. Now, Bernard, to answer a lot of that question, I do a lot more short game teaching than full swing.
Okay.
And that's kind of by design. Even when somebody comes to me for a full swing, let's go to short game. Because I know that if I can get them to start, if they can't stay on plane, 2 feet back, 2 feet through in basic motion, they got no chance in total motion.
Yeah, I totally agree. I actually use a what I call a core rotation drill that gets the student to stay on plane and pretty much only swings from 4 to 8 o'clock. So that's really like 2 feet back, 2 feet through, like you're saying. I have them work that tremendously when they first come to me to get that part of their body and to get everything online so that they start to feel what has to happen. Then I let them get it bigger and bigger and bigger. But I agree that short game, it's that little section there is pretty much impact zone. If that's not
Yeah.
correct, then how the heck can it be correct if you get it big?
Yeah, and everybody's a field player, right? So everybody's a field player. And like Homer Kelly said, mechanics produce field, field reproduces the mechanic. And so we do these little things, this basic motion. And it's basically we're killing two birds with one stone. Working on the chip shot to a degree and impact and the plane line. Basically we're killing more than two, I guess. And so then we learn what it feels like. What does it feel like to be on plane with the right arm tracing? What does it feel like to have the left wrist flat? And then we gradually get faster and faster. Like a kid when you learn how to write. You didn't start out in cursive. Remember, you were tracing those letters. Then all of a sudden you get faster and faster. That's your motor skills developing. And the golf swing happens in the second half. It's too quick to try to learn all these things in total motion. Let's boil them down. Let's go, basic motion, acquired motion, and then go to total motion.
Sure, and absolutely, because what that allows then is the brain to start to build those neuropaths for the motor skill, for them to be ingrained and to grow at a exponential rate, so that way it's not like it's a whole motion, and the brain doesn't have a chance to start to grasp and ingrain that.
Yeah, and I'll do a lot of it with, a lot of these little basic motions having you do the eyes closed. Because now you're solely dependent on the hands, educating the hands. You have no eyes. It is the hands doing everything.
Yeah, and I love that. I love the eyes closed because what that does too is when you take a sense out, one of your senses, because your body's used to using all the senses all at once. But certain parts of those senses are dulled when they're all together. If you take one of those senses out, like you just said, with your eyes, holy moly! Now your sense of feel, your sense of balance, yeah, and well, not as much taste, smell, and hear, but even here, taste and smell maybe is not as important in the golf swing, but the hear and the balance sense. Which is the feel sense, that totally is almost electrified to a higher rate that now helps them all of a sudden go, wow, yeah, I really do feel that. And I can feel myself kind of falling backwards, or I can feel these things happening. So, that's a really good one.
So what is our only attachment? What is the only body part that we have attached to the golf club? The hands.
Yes.
They are command central, feel central. So you must educate them. I mean, Sam Snead said you got to know what your hands are doing. And that is one way to get them working is, just imagine, you remember how many times that everybody's had the power go out in their house, right? And what do? They start feeling around, walking around, feeling around with their hands everywhere. They are command central, so you got to educate them. They got to know their assignments.
I totally agree with that. And that's some great insight also for our listeners in Par Nation, is that feel and that component, understanding and educating your hands and educating that path, that allows the body to be able to repeat that over and over and over again more consistently. If that's not happening, then you're kind of doing yourself a disservice. You're fighting yourself. It's going to take you a lot longer to get the results that you desire.
Yeah, and I tell you what, now when you go into other drills too, where you talk about drills, now I do a lot, and since you've had Lynn on before, then Lynn's probably talked to you about the Bob Mcdonnell drills, which I do a lot of those out of his book in 1927. But because, like Homer wrote, zone one of the body. Now you can build all this impact you want, but then the body has to have its role, right? And so we got to get it coordinated. We got to get it balanced, and we got to get it sequenced. So we do those McDonnell drills constantly. Do that, and we do a lot of course, a lot of pitch shots off of 1 foot, left foot only. Right foot back, stay centered. A lot of walking and swinging, and that's one I learned from Lynn, is actually walking and swinging the club, right foot back, left foot through. And you're talking about a drill that constantly builds the coordination and the sequencing and balance, and also keeps you in a straight line center. It is huge. Once kids start doing it, they start hitting the ball better walking. They do standing still.
Yeah, so balance is so very important, not only in the golf swing, but in any athletic endeavor. And if we look at any player who plays at a high level, their balance is absolutely impeccable. I mean, they're never falling off their feet. They're never falling back or forward. They're always in position and in control of what their body is doing. And so if players work a lot more on balance, like you're saying, a lot of the other things start to fall into place on their own. They don't have to worry about positions as much as they do about just staying in balance and then allowing the fluidity to happen a lot easier. Do you find that?
Yeah, I mean, balance is what separates the good from the great to a degree.
Yep.
You know, with everything else being identical, it's whoever has that better balance. And you have to build it. I mean, I don't, you know, some people are born with great balance, but you've got to build the balance. You've got to use all the tools you can to get the coordination there, because you can see a lot of great arm swings, but the body is just so out of whack. It's like, all right, you got great impact alignments, but unfortunately, it's not doing you any good.
Absolutely.
So we got to train the body.
Yep. So now, do you use any type of fitness type things for players to be able to create better balance in any way, or is most of the way that you're creating the balance just in? So in other words, like core strengthening or things like that, or is the way that you're creating it just by drills and like 1 foot or the other or different lies or things like that?
Now, I myself do not do any physical fitness training or anything to that degree. Now, I will tell them they need to go see somebody, because sometimes that belly needs to get out of there. You know, you've got to be in better shape, and it's your physical. You know, it all depends. Let me put it this way: it all depends on what degree of golf they want to reach. How effective do they want to play?
Right.
All right. They want to get really good. Well, sometimes that weight needs to come off. You've got, and not only is it better for golf, it's better for your own health. And so, but I really specifically don't work on that. I have a personal trainer myself, and I tell them all the time, go see him. Go see this guy. You know, start putting together a plan, because you need to get more flexible. You need to lose some weight. But basically all my drills are just coordinating and balance motion. At the fitness part, I kind of stay out of. I don't really have enough time to get into that, and it's really not my forte.
Right. I know that I'm the same. I don't get super involved in fitness, but I do suggest to players to do certain things in fitness, or to, even though I'm certified as a fitness instructor, I'm usually working more on mechanics and on like we said, flat left wrist, straight plane line, bottom of swing arc, things of that nature. And then also fluidity and getting them to be to use their natural swing to produce what they want to have happen. But when it comes to the fitness part, I usually hand that over to other experts and allow them to take the ball and run with it. But I always suggest to all my players to do whatever they can to stay fit and to keep their core strong, because if you have a strong core, you're automatically going to be better balanced and better in athletic condition to create the best possible scenario that you can with your body. I mean, if your body's in good shape, you can create a lot more power, ground force, all different kinds of things.
There's no doubt. But, I mean, also understand, not 80% of the people I teach are just like 80% of the golfers in this world. They're weekend golfers. And so I tell you so much stuff. You know, that was the great thing about the golfing machine. Every member swing is in there. And sometimes, like Homer said, you just need to build in a compensation, because they're not going to take forth the time or effort to really build in the things they need to in their golf swings, the imperatives. Yeah. So, and I work with the body off of that. Like, if somebody can't keep their head located still, well, you know what? I'll move the ball around. You know, we'll find the place. We'll put the ball where it needs to be, versus them trying to keep their head centered.
Well, that's good. I've never thought about that. I mean, I don't want to say that I've never thought about it. I have moved the ball around a little bit for certain players, due to what they naturally do. Their swing bottom might happen at a different spot. So in order to get that to happen ahead of the ball, then there might be some changing with ball position. There's no doubt about that. So for players who are interested in coming and working with you, what is the best way for them to get in touch with you?
First of all, by email, wayne@pga.com. And the second thing is my Facebook page, Wayne Watts Golf Academy on Facebook. And but email is the best way for me. You know, like I said, I'm lucky. I stay really booked, and I attribute it about 98% of it to Lynn Blake. He's the one that steered me in all this stuff, and you know, I taught alongside with him for 5.5 years, and he put me on every golf book known to man. I must have a collection of 1,000 now.
Yeah, is there any books that you can recommend for our listeners out there in Par Nation?
Tommy Armour, how to play your best golf of all time. Jackie Burke, A Natural Way to Better Golf. Golf Fundamentals, Seymour Dunn. On Learning Golf, Percy Boomer. The Natural Golf Swing by George Knudson was a very good one. And the list goes on and on. You know, there's just so many.
Sure, there always is, but it's always nice to just hear a few of what you would recommend to students.
You know, all of mine are the old stuff, you know, the classics. You know, the new stuff just doesn't, I'll read it, but I just love the old classic stuff because it's like, man, they had the game figured out back then. Why are we trying to reinvent the wheel sometimes?
Yeah, well, you know what? I mean, it's physical motion is physical motion, and no matter what you do, and physics is physics. You still got a club and you got a ball, so things aren't going to change a whole heck of a lot. And I think that once we start to see a lot of this technology coming out, it kind of actually validates that. I know that it has for me. You know, I see things and then I go, yeah, that's exactly what happened when Bobby Jones was doing it, and it's exactly what's going to happen now. And when I'm dirt, it's still going to be happening as long as this game is around. So that's definitely true.
No doubt. That's a great way to say it. It just validates everything.
Absolutely. So, Wayne, it was an absolute pleasure having you, and I wish you all the best. And as we always say here at Breaking Par and Parting, we hope that you try to keep it in the short grass as much as possible.
Thank you very much, Bernard. I really appreciate you having me on.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Do you want to play better golf? Of course you do. Well, here are 3 easy ways to do it. 1. Open your smartphone and look for the podcast app. 2. Open the podcast app and search Breaking Par with Bernard Sheridan. 3. Subscribe and never miss an episode of great golf instructor interviews from around the world. A new guest every week, like David Ledbetter, Brian Manzella, Dr. Sashow McKenzie, James Siekman, just to name a few. Hear their insight as they deliver their wisdom of the game. Take control of your game. Subscribe today. Your game will thank you for it.